And I was reading it, and it was talking about all these people that were there that belonged to something called the effective altruism movement.
Okay. Pause. Not in that way.
Okay. Because I will say, if you read the article, that does actually kind of work for that.
Praise, can you say a little bit about effective altruism?
Absolutely. I want listeners here to imagine possibly the most annoying guy they've ever met in their life. He's in your head, right? Well, let me rephrase that a little bit. So you know how sometimes like you see like tech CEOs or like, programmers and stuff, and they seem to view the world in a way that is just totally incomprehensible to somebody with like a heart that feels and like a soul that like yearns to be free and love.
Yes.
And
Blood that bleeds.
Exactly. Basically what I'm talking about here is people that might be atypical in a certain way, right? There is a sort of a philosophy that many of these people follow that comes from technically comes from Peter Singer, but via basically a guy named William McCaskill, who is one of, I guess, Singer's acolytes. And while they gussy all this stuff up in a lot of nonsense, it essentially means that if you are willing to put your money somewhere where the data says it will be used most effectively to save the most, and this is where it gets kind of unquantifiable, although they do try to quantify it, to save the most of something, right? Whether it's like fish in the ocean or like children in Bangladesh, something. If you have calculated like the best way to do that, to do the most good, to make the most impact on the world, is to make as much money as possible, then that is basically the route that you should go.
Right.
So it sort of presents itself as like this really rational sort of altruism, right? And in fact, it did come out of, and we're going to do an episode on this, the rationalist movement,
right,
which is basically sort of the Nazi movement for the 21st century, I would say. It is there's some heavy echoes there, but it is basically, it's like an updated kind of, it's the newest sort of iteration of the California ideology, sort of this like Silicon Valley supremacy of all of these like programmers and tech workers who view the world through this, quote, really rationalist lens. It's very utilitarian. I mean,
yeah,
that
I was going
is
to
what
say
these
it's
people...
like a very, vulgar utilitarianism,
Yes.
which is already itself very vulgar.
Listen, you're talking to one of the least utilitarian men in the world. But
it leads you to holding positions where basically like it's against the like. It's a net negative on society than to be an individual who simply eats chicken, whereas it's a net positive as a CFO at Goldman Sachs or Raytheon, so long as you are, basically accruing funds to then put forward towards whatever
your pet project is.
like net positive like event or charity or program, you've calculated that you've offset all of these other things. I mean, it's just literally bullshit. I'm sorry. It's total bullshit.
Like everything else,
math.
It's fucking bullshit. And everything else.
Just like everything else in this story, it's made up monopoly math.
It's not only made up monopoly math, it's also done by people who, when you actually read their words or hear them speak, are fucking sociopaths. No. And this is not some like fringe ideology out there. I mean, you got everybody from Peter Thiel to fucking Elon Musk to all these people speaking at their conferences. I guess those are just two people who work together at PayPal. But this is a pretty widespread thing.
Not friends.
Well, yeah, but
frenemies.
They could make up for it.
They're frenemies.
I think Thiel wanted him to buy Twitter, actually. So
I would, maybe to tank Twitter. So then, there's long.
Yeah. Anyways, this podcast is now on Rumble, but for like it's effective altruism is just like this, like it's really in vogue among a lot of people, or possibly was until this week, among a lot of people with money, because one of the central tenets of it is if it gives you this sort of this like moral backdoor to be selfish, right? And so like, if you read articles from it, it's like, okay, about it, all those kind of defenses of it, it was like, okay, well, I became a hedge fund manager so that I could earn as much money, so that I could give as much as possible, so I could give as much money as I can to the causes that I have determined using data will do the most good. So it's actually the most moral position for me to take to become a hedge fund manager, to
Right.
work in an oil company, to run one of the largest Ponzi schemes in human history.
Totally.
And there's these concepts that of EAers, they call themselves, use. And this is, to be clear, like the rationalist movement that gave birth to effective altruism is the same movement that gave birth to fascists like fucking Mencius Moldbug, right?
Yeah, I mean, also like, entire industries, like the banking industry or tech industries, or even you mentioned the oil industries, like these big firms have carved out new positions for these kinds of people, so that they have these like entire verticals that are basically like, look, I think that ESG was perverted from its like intentions for a long fucking time.
Yeah.
But this is like put those kind of like the perverting power of ESG on like overdrive, right? And so it's carved out positions in companies for like, calculating, I don't know, like not just donations and philanthropic stuff, but like actual business decisions.
Yeah.
Which has then kind of itself like put the EA movement, like has like sped up the movement, right? Because now these people have positions that they can find in companies, right? And it's this sort of like, I don't know, self-fulfilling prophecy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, a big thing in these is earn to give.
Yeah.
And so you want to basically like, you're working so that you can give money away. And like several people who work at FTX, or at least one person worked at FTX, had worked at Facebook previously and was like giving away 50% of his income as he was going. Another big, and that also is of course an excuse to like take these higher and higher profile jobs and more well-paying jobs, usually in some pretty scummy industries, right? So that, I mean, because, Facebook, it's, all these places are just stealing your soul and your data, but like, well, you're
just like laundering profits into other kind of shell entities. I mean, everyone knows the game.
And another thing is long-termism, right? Where they make these very coldly calculated rational decisions where like, and this is where you got almost, and not to use the LaRoucheite term, but like you sort of get this Malthusian or this like eugenicist mindset behind a lot of these people, where like they're actually the only people who are truly looking out for the long-term survivability of the human race and of the planet. And so that's
book about long-termism that's like fucking huge right now. Have you seen that? That's like A Future to Win or something like that.
No, I'll be honest with you, I'm reading beautiful novels.
No, I know, but you would just see it. I mean, it's like it's like a huge
Brace Belden's Guide to Having Sex for More Than 7 Minutes.
No. Definitely not long-termism.
That's super long, but okay. But yeah, and so I mean, all of it boils down to all these fancy words, all these websites they have. All of it boils down to both it's okay for me to do whatever I want as long as I have calculated it in whatever twisted fucking evil devil math that I've done to make sure that it's actually okay because I'm helping the world.
Yeah.
And it's all super individualistic because these people, like, they like, it is a fucking cult is what it is.